morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Okay, well, the sad news, the passing of former President Muhammadu Buhari, that was released yesterday. Most people have said they were shocked, and most people knew that he was out of the country, but thought that it was for treatment. Well, it probably was for treatment, and so here we are dealing with it. God gives and God takes, as they say. We've been getting commiserations from all over. President Tinubu has sent his condolences, has spoken with his wife. Yemi Oshibajo, Professor Yemi Oshibajo has also, expressed his condolence. His condolences are coming from everywhere. We're talking about President Muhammadu Buhari, former President Muhammadu Buhari. But then there are also so many high-powered deaths that have occurred. We're also hearing of the passing of the Awujale of Ijebu-Ode, Oba Kayode Sikiru in Adetono. So these are the things. Of course, before all of that, there was the Olubadan that had passed on. But those are traditional rulers. Here we're talking about the president, former president of the Federation, Muhammadu Buhari. Well, today we'll look at the times of the man, and we'll look at some of the things, what he stood for, what he stood for, and generally talk about, in fact, the way we have it here is that Buhari, death of a Nigerian giant. So that's where we start from, and our guest is Professor Bello Daudun Bada. Professor Bello Daudun Bada is an academic and public affairs analyst. A fine morning to you, Prof. Thank you for making it.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting me.
Our pleasure. Now, did it shock you? Because people have said that they were shocked. The president passed at 82. Were you shocked by the news? I mean, let me just hear it from you.
Well, I wasn't shocked by the death, because death is inevitable. We all knew one day we would die. Buhari, at the age of 82, and even when he was president, at one particular time, he was hospitalized for a very long time. And I think we got the information even before the immediate death that he was also being hospitalized in London.
Yes.
So therefore you could see an old person at the age of 82 sick, therefore his death was not unexpected.
Oh, okay then. What are, I guess there will be many things that you can remember the former president for. I remember that during the electioneering campaign, just before he went into the election, that he ultimately won and became the president and served for 8 years, 2 terms of 8 years, the immediate predecessor of, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He was much admired in the country. It's like nobody wanted to hear any other name but for Buhari. In fact, those of us that don't speak any northern language, we became, familiar with the expression "say Baba, say Baba." We just knew that, well, that was, people sort of giving their respect. What would you remember? What do you think he can easily be remembered for?
Well, I think Buhari would easily be remembered as a kind of person who had an opportunity to rule Nigeria for 8 years as a civilian president without changing his own lifestyle, his eating lifestyle, his dressing, his expenditure. He was a kind of person, he remained very, very much not the kind of person who was, what do we say? So he was very moderate.
Yes.
In terms of expenditure, in terms of dressing, in terms of his own family, his own house. So you'd always remember him. And you'd always remember him as a person who was not talkative as such. And even after 8 years, you'd remember him as a kind of person whom, when he finished his tenure, would allow the man who succeeded him to continue to do his best without interference. Unlike other past presidents of Nigeria who would continue to interfere and continue embracing the government and the president at a time. So we remember Buhari like that.
It's interesting you say that, but that Buhari was a man who, he, as you were saying, he didn't let the office change him. I think that's what you're referring to when you said that he didn't change. He was who he was. A man of perhaps few words. He didn't probably like to talk too much, didn't grant too many interviews. Certainly the press chat that people had become used to, well, I guess President Buhari wasn't exactly a fan of that. But I guess the other thing that sort of preceded him was his sense of discipline. People just had this notion that President Muhammadu Buhari is a highly disciplined individual. And in fact, they looked forward to his coming. This was before he actually was sworn in, before he won the election, was sworn in. And this was before then, and it was thought that a lot of that would come to, bear on his service when it came to the time for him to actually serve. What do you think about this feeling that some express that, but the Muhammadu Buhari that we know and that I knew and that I was waiting for, he softened up. He softened up with the result that the kind of lack of tolerance for, mediocrity that I had expected, I didn't see very much of that. What would you say, sir, in that regard?
Nigeria of 1983-84, when Buhari came as a military head of state, at the age of about 40 to 42 years, wasn't a Nigeria of 2015 in terms of everything. Even Buhari himself, he was younger by 1983-84. By the time he came for the second coming in 2015, Buhari was about 70 years or even 72 years. So you could really imagine under the complexity of Nigeria. Multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural. Military rule was not like civilian rule. Here you would have to deal with the National Assembly and with the Constitution. And with all others. You had to be tolerant of different views. So people had higher expectations for Buhari because of what they knew happened 31st December 1983 to August 1985. He and the 28 year old. So because of that, they had higher hopes, more than what he could actually deliver when he came as a civilian president. And I think he became a little bit frustrated from his own actions. You could really see that is this the Nigerian society that we left behind some years ago. I think it was when he really arrived there, then he knew, when he started, he knew that this is a Nigeria that is very complex, very difficult. People becoming more and more materialistic, cunning, very wise in terms of how they keep away from the radar of the law. And I think people like him, who said very few words, could be emotionally and psychologically be frustrated. When you look at his own life, I was a very, very critic of his own regime, especially how he treated university education. But sincerely, this was what happened. And we refused to really examine and compare military regime for a head of state who was just about 40, 42 years old, and the Nigerian society at that particular time, and the Nigerian society of 2015, when politics already taught people so many ways of siphoning resources of Nigeria. Very kind, setting people against each other, tribe against tribe, for the sake of winning elections. So he found himself in that situation. And since he didn't know how to lie, So it would be very difficult to really achieve that. So people became disappointed, except very few who could really understand. But when you look at his own life as an individual and his words, so you would find. And the age was also telling on him. You could see he was hospitalized so many times during the regime. Yes, if the place was not meant for more and more decent, unfortunately, we don't see that.
Yeah,
but the way Nigerians became so much unpatriotic, so much materialist, so much kind of people could not feel it when they participate in destroying their own country. They don't have feelings. Yes, if no feelings, no emotions, animalistic. So a person like that finds himself at the helm of affairs. Yes. And that was why you find so many rogues surrounding him, so many hyenas surrounding him. I think frustrating.
You know, I hear you. I hear what you're saying, and yeah, I can relate to it as we're following it from the outside. The thing with President Buhari, of course, that can be said is that he was persistent. It took him 4 tries. He went to the electorate 4 times before, indeed, he did clinch the prize. But once he had gotten in there, and this is where I come to the way when you use the word frustration, maybe then having arrived and having looked at the books, because as you know, there was a time when it was felt that things were a bit slow. Nearly 6 months after being sworn in, we didn't have the the executive team yet. Perhaps that relates to what he meant and the fact that he was going to play by the rules. He is no more a military head of state. He's now a democratically elected and democratically installed head of state, and that has its own, it brings along its own baggage. You can't do things anyhow you want. Things must always be based on the rule of law. And President Muhammadu Buhari, in fact, frustrating a lot of other Nigerians, insisted on crossing every T and dotting every I as far as the rule of law was concerned, and there was no way he was going to do what perhaps a lot of people had thought that, aha, you know Nigerians now, you know, and so this is something that you can do something about. But he would say that, sorry, if I didn't know before, I have been told that, well, this is a democracy and you can't do things the way the military do things. So there's that aspect to the man at all as well. One, he was very, very persistent. 2, when he got into office, he was going to play by the rules. What does this say about the man?
I think when he came to the office, he was face to face with the reality of the Nigerian governance, face to face with the rot. What I think happened was his own people, his team didn't do enough research to find out the decay in the governance, the corruption, economy, politics, National Assembly, Nigerians, so that they could prepare before coming to the office. I think they closed their eyes, they left the man, because they knew he was a very, very difficult person to convince him to do what he felt was not within the law. So they left him. When he was face to face with the rot, I think that was when he was put off. And that was why perhaps it took him many months to really assemble his cabinet, thinking which one shall I going to take. At the beginning, he said he was not going to allow governors to give him his own ministers, since he would not interfere in appointing their own cabinet members. But Nigeria being what it is with the law, at the end of the day, for your second time, you are coming to the same governors, looking for votes. They control the states. So such things would frustrate any kind of person that perhaps you could say, had I known, because he was not ready to really adjust, not ready to change, and they didn't have the capacity, real capacity of confronting these cabals wherever they are. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. When you are dealing with the fuel subsidy, you confront them. When you are duly dealing with the foreign exchange, you confront them, you really need all the praise of the good people of Nigeria and the support, because they would not support. And that was why it was almost a no-go area, especially the subsidy. And he could really see corruption there. Some were taken to the court. Courts could not prosecute them, and so on and so forth. And I think that actually happened to him. Perhaps inside him, perhaps he was praying for a day when there would be a leader who would have the capacity to really confront that court.
Yes.
See, if you read the book recently released by the former chairman of EFC, trying to tell you more and more about the fuel subsidy, you will be shocked as a Nigerian. So I think that was what really happened to him. He was not expecting, he knew there was really corruption and so on and so forth, but he never knew that the tragedy was entirely empty. And the nation, and the kind of people, and even the people around him who are not like him in terms of their own integrity, but were using his own figure, his own personality, hide behind his own personality, and achieve what really they wanted to achieve. And you can see even now, they could not wait for 2 years when they are not involved in governance. They have no patience to even wait for 2 years. Now they assemble themselves.
You know, President Buhari, when you look at it, there's a sense in which sometimes from listening to some of the things he was saying, these weren't even policy things. I wonder if he got a bit fed up with it all because of the juxtaposition of him being a man that is well known to be highly disciplined, and then working in an environment where you just had to be adaptable and then politically minded in order to sort things out. Because at the end, towards the end, it began to, when reporters would ask him what they thought were light questions about how he was feeling in office as the days were counting down to the end of his service. And I remember he was saying things like, I can't wait. I can't wait to get out and go to my farm and be with my cattle and just generally live the kind of life that I've always wanted to live. I mean, the fact that he was expressing those thoughts in that way, that, look, I'll do my duty. Any way you look at it, I will always do my duty, but, you know, I can't wait to get out. Again, that's another aspect of the man. We've already discussed the fact that he didn't seem to be interested in material things. He didn't overdo anything as far as we could see from the outside here. But that particular vocalizing it that he can't wait to get out. Do you think that might have contributed in some way to, because the mystique was there between him and Tunde Idiagbon when they both came to office? Both of them were much admired, and so people had expected that same fervor to continue. But now we have this situation where Buhari was saying towards the end that I can't wait to get out. In fact, since he has passed on now, I've been watching some other videos where he was saying that, is this not the life? He was conducting a bunch of people, a handful of reporters to his farm, and he was saying, this is the life. I couldn't wait to get out. What would be your reaction to those?
I really agree with you. I think Buhari became a politician and not politically grounded in the African politics and the Nigerian politics in particular. And he was not ready to really adjust to the Nigerian politics. And the Nigerian politics was chop, 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 and let others chop. Buhari was not the type of person like that. Even think he could not wait. He quickly moved to Daura.
Yes.
A local government council headquarters. And that was where he stayed. People were saying it was the present president of Nigeria who might have convinced him. But I heard it from Buhari himself. He said his house in Kaduna was renovated. President Bala Ahmed Tinubu, he said it. I think he might have been the one convincing him perhaps to even move to Kaduna. Because the age and the security, telling so much on him. So you could really see some people who are really benefiting materially and very close to him did not want him to give up. Perhaps I wouldn't even have contested for the second term. People see this. There is no doubt about it. Materially, you can't falter him. In terms of few words, that's how it is. And he's very jovial. He can crack jokes. And in terms of family, you could see he was able to allow his own daughters to get sound education and they get married. A disciplined family. You don't find his own members of his own family, his daughters, his children. You don't find him trying to associate the government, the treasury, or the state government. So he has that really discipline. It's unfortunate, you see, Nigeria was not ready for him at the time he came. And he was not ready again for the Nigeria he found at that particular time. So it became a tragedy to the Nigerian democracy, if you could see it. I hope we will learn lesson from that. We pray for his soul to rest in peace.
Indeed.
But there is this incompatibility. Buhari, his lifestyle, his discipline, and his perception, his worldview, and the Nigerian politics he found when he became president in 2015. I think there is that gap, which we refuse to make research and really find out so that we could avoid pitfalls of that nature in the future for our country.
The one thing that I think a lot of people will relate to with former President Muhammadu Buhari is his sense of discipline. He just had this sense of discipline. In fact, he tried to help Nigerians. If you remember back in the time, going back to, one can't be looking at them with too much fondness, the military era. That is the one thing that himself and General Tunde Diagbon at the time felt that Nigeria was lacking in and that they had to work on. It was a question of the discipline. And so they were very, very strong on discipline, for whatever it was worth. But you could see, and I think what President Buhari saw, that, well, once that era was over and people were free to go about their business in peace, they quickly reverted to some of those things that he and his colleague at the time had decided that it was necessary to adjust. If we look at it, what do you... Sorry, sir.
He mentioned it himself, part of, I think, some of his own feelings, that people who stole Nigerian wealth, Nigerian money,
yes,
during that politics, and their property seized, taken back to government. He said after his tenure and the 20 years ago, when they were not there, he said the same people were allowed to repossess what actually belonged to the government. And he felt Nigerian society kept quiet. The media kept quiet. Yes, if there was a conspiracy, you see, to rob Nigeria of what really belonged to Nigeria. And they had to fight the same people again in politics. You couldn't believe it. People were saying, try first time, second time, third time, he could not make it. And by the time he was able to make it, he found again the road which he sought was not at that level. He found it confronting him, and there was no ideology to refer to. Then there were so many chains of democracy. You are not a military group. You just have to go to the National Assembly.
Yeah.
He was not impressed with the National Assembly, not impressed with the Nigerian politicians, not impressed with members of his own party. And therefore, you find he limited even his own movements from Nigeria to other countries, these visits that were almost necessary. I think he found even other foreign countries were more and more interested in companies coming from their own country and they get more and more contracts from Nigeria. That is what is actually normal. People very close to him, again, he was more and more disappointed. And there was no Tunde. Time he looked back, there was no Tunde. Chains all over. by the rules of politics.
Yeah.
Stopping. He had so many good programs for ordinary people, if you could remember, especially providing fertilizer free to the rural farmers. But it was not reaching the rural farmers. Again, he was also trying to use Bank of Industry and others to empower industrialists, to establish companies here. And he was again realizing, no, and the security situations again becoming more and more disappointed. I think it really had impact on him, because as a person personally, this issue of mystic personality. So you could see this a lot. This incompatibility you could see. The Nigerian political scene and the people like him, and so on and so forth. Even the most experienced Nigerian politician, when he comes to power, he will find politics in Nigeria very difficult, because people are ready to use every sentence, every emotion. When they are personally affected, when their fortunes personally affected, they are ready to use religion, to use tribe if you don't belong to their tribe, to fight you. Ordinary people may not understand that it is their personal interest that is affected, but they will mobilize pastors, the imams, the traditional rulers, and fight you. And I think Buhari realized really this. He was not in the good books, of such elders, definitely, because Buhari would not give you personal money or take a government's property and give you pushing your life. Buhari
that wasn't his style.
Exactly. So,
okay. I'll tell you what, Prof. We're going to take a break now. Let me take a quick break. We'll be right back to continue with this conversation. Stay tuned, please.
Information is power, information is security, information is knowledge. On Labor Lens, we believe that working people around the world have real questions of their own. They want to know how the world of work operates, what it means to the employer of labor, how policies affect workers in the workplace. On Labor Lens, I ensure we engage effectively the organized labor, organized private sector, and government to get out of them information workers are in need of. I am Sharon Ijason, asking questions that make you get sense of the workplace.
Good morning, Marina Station and all the passengers. Efficient, it's comfortable.
This development will go a long way in reducing congestion and emission.
The trains are a long-term solution to Lagos traffic challenges.
This is where we take the final, decisions on policies, programs of government. I will have to ensure that, the narration of Lagos as a PLC is taken very, very seriously.
This is a major pedestrian bridge linking Oyingo here to Apapa Road over there.
With this overpass, we are providing what we call a permanent solution.
This place is one of the most dangerous areas at the biosecurity environment.
This can go into the news and every crumbs of your neighborhood.
Our goal is to remain as Africa's model megacity, to move our GDP from the 5-6 position to the 3rd position, and we believe it's achievable with all the commitments we have.
Explore the city of Lagos, where dreams are made and possibilities are endless. Amadedoja Salamadini. I live in Lagos, inside Lagos.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest is Professor Bello Daundun Bada. He's an academic and public affairs analyst. He's our guest. Thank you once more for fixing us into your early morning schedule. We're talking about the late, and if you want, great Muhammadu Buhari, who has passed on, and he's sorely missed. There have been messages of condolences going all over the place. Diko Umaru Rada, the Katsina State governor, that is Buhari's home state, he also has sent out condolences. But let me ask you this about Muhammadu Buhari, Prof. You alluded to it earlier. Since President Muhammadu Buhari left office, is it that we haven't had enough time, or I can't remember him addressing the country one way or the other about what's going on now? In other words, he is leaving those that are here now to get on with the job. And, that's not how it has always been. Some people have moved out of office, but if you weren't very careful, you wouldn't have noticed it from the frequency with which they come into public affairs, comment on public affairs. Is that something that we can also put down to, one, the fact that he's a gentleman, officer and gentleman, and the fact that he's a highly disciplined person? Once he left it, he left it.
I think he was in good contact with those that really matter, especially Mr. President Bolaji. And I think he was expressing his own observations and his contributions to the peace and the economic development of the country. He was not a kind of person that would invite the media and embrace the government that he really left. Some former presidents are like that. They are fond of embracing the government as long as they are not there. They believe they are the only ones that know all and everything. And whoever is there, they would criticize, invite the media, condemn, show what is wrong. I think Buhari, by his nature, he learned from that. He didn't like that when it was being done to him. Mm-hmm. And you could see he was not attacking, even when he was president. He was not attacking Jonathan, whom he succeeded, even though you knew how the competition was. And I think they related very well. So when he left office, I believe, if you observe happenings, he was in good contact with Mr. President. And on some occasions, he used to praise Mr. President.
Okay.
One or two times publicly. But I believe he was in good contact, giving his own contribution as well and so forth. He believes, as a disciplined gentleman, it would not be good for you in a country where you rule for 8 years to be inviting the media and embracing a person who is there, because in one way or the other, one policy does not make life better for some people in the country, and you just see that opportunity, use the media as former president, and mobilize the populace against the government. I think that was what he was. He said it publicly, even his house, that was it.
Okay. Let me bring on this caller. Good morning, Mr. Joshua in Iriwale. Good morning, Mr. Joshua. Calling from Iriwale. Okay, I see what happened. We lost that call. So, President Muhammadu Buhari passed, and the president, has commiserated. Flags are supposed to be flying. In fact, they will be flying at, never mind supposed to be. Flags are at half-mast because as a mark of respect for a great man who served his country and has now passed on. And we're looking at legacies. What, Prof, would you say are some of the legacies that we could attribute to Buhari's time in service?
Well, I think consistency. Somebody who would be consistent in what he really believes. Remember, when people of his own party, and even those of not his party, visited him in his house to inform him with their own dissatisfaction with the ruling party, APC, he publicly said he would continue to be grateful to the party that offered him platform, and he became president for 8 years. He said he would never betray that. Those were his own words. Nobody contradicted them. And I think that was their last visit. So you could see publicly and honorably, you see, without abusive language, should say, I would never betray the party that actually gave me a platform, and I became president for 8 good years after many attempts.
Yeah.
So he has that character and his own lifestyle, and he knew what he really left behind. And that was why I think when he was alive, he was sympathizing with the present president and appreciating his efforts. Very few people could be sincere like that. He knew the road he left behind. He knew the road he left. He made. He knew the road he left behind. Concerning Nigerian economy, he knew the economy was almost collapsing. He knew. And that was why all the policy people are really trying. Buhari remained, said, look, give the support. So, and that issue again of putting material behind, not the main focus, is becoming the norm in Nigeria today. So you really appreciate Buhari for that.
Indeed. Let me bring on Are Egbeyemi in Magodo, as a matter of fact. Good morning, Are. Are Egbeyemi in Magodo. Good morning to you, sir. Can you hear me, Are Egbeyemi?
Good morning. I want to, empathize with the family of the departed head of state. Yeah, I can hear you. I want to extend my condolences to the family of the departed head of state. I want to say that, for me, the former head of state has two facets of lives with Nigerians. First, as a soldier, when we were very young, he came in as somebody who introduced discipline into public speaking. Well, that was good. That was sincerely good. We all appreciated that. For his second coming, actually has a lot of disturbance records. For me, Muhammadu Buhari came for the second time, genuinely from my heart, to take over because he was disgraced out of office. So he came back to say that, well, I'm back. He was never in control, but he did his best. He was never in control. The several indiscipline that we thought is going to correct aggravated under Muhammadu Buhari. But in our parlance here in Nigeria, we don't talk ill of the dead. So let's leave it like that. May his soul rest in peace. May the people he left behind be able to bear the fortitude to look at the departure of their beloved ones in a proper way. But for so many Nigerians, Muhammadu Buhari never did well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for calling in. Prof, you just heard that's another perspective on the man, and such is life. Of course, there will be different perspectives on the same person.
Yes, I heard him. You see, I think we discussed this with you before his phone call. Look, the environment itself and the time, we said, was not easy. Perhaps Buhari could have said, had I known, I think I mentioned this. You see, even the most experienced politician in Nigeria find himself in the seat of power, because as long as the environment, the people, patriotism is very low, and the people are divided according to their own religion or tribe, and the politicians are very cunning. Once they are disappointed personally, they know how to mobilize traditional rulers, religious rulers, tribal leaders. They know how to mobilize them against you. Things would be very difficult. Not only Buhari, any person coming to rule Nigeria. You could see very good policy that would come, that would improve your economy, that will be opposed. And if you don't be careful, you have to draw back. Or during elections, you will suffer defeat. So you could really see this. And I think I earlier said Buhari does not have, or did not have, his mom, did not have that kind of capacity to turn evil for evil. You see, didn't have that. He could not turn evil for evil. That's the Nigerian politics. And that was why he could not really impress people in his second coming. Many people were disappointed in his own coming. The context, you look at it contextually, and you will continue to see other leaders that will come after his tenure. That's Nigeria.
Indeed.
We really need to talk to ourselves.
Let me bring on Ibrahim in Minna. Good morning, Ibrahim.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Yes. We have to condole with the departed, which him control the family and the nation as a whole, and we beg the God to forgive his shortcomings. And like human being himself has said it, that whatever mistake he made, people should find way of forgiving him one way or the other. But when Buhari came as a military man, we saw a level of discipline. He was trying to introduce the culture of discipline. And the culture of discipline was the culture of the discipline includes the issue of corruption, and which is still a fundamental problem in our society. And people agitated that, thought that if you come back as far as come back to govern Nigeria, he will be able to instill that back again. Unfortunately for him, the society he met has changed. One, even before he came in as part of politics, he was being labeled as a dictator, a draconian, called all sorts of names by media. But when he came in, he wanted to be a Democrat, and he was a victim of it. Because the National Assembly, he said he was going to leave them to choose their leader. And that became the first of his undoing. And again, when he wanted to fight corruption, the media, the same media, was saying, if you don't fight corruption in this way, you have to go through all this and that. He sent in a bill. The issue of, the other time he brought this issue of whistleblower, the issue of so many things for the National Assembly to attest to so that he can fight the corruption. He couldn't fight his own undoing because the society he thought was good. It's quite different. And at a point, he was even praying, when is he going to leave this office? Because Nigeria became a place that, of course, he was not expecting that was what he was going to meet. So in Nigeria, we have a challenge, and that challenge still remains. The challenge still remains that until we have somebody like that has that integrity, the discipline, and I can surround himself with people who have similar character, we are still going to be rotating around As long as so he was defeated by those people that surrounded him. All the names any person may call him is because of those people who surrounded him. But I can bet you, they will still tell you that is the level, a man of integrity, a man of discipline, a man of a gentleman, and from his military to those who serve under him. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for calling in, Ibrahim from Mina. Well, Prof, our time is far spent, and thank you very much for your insights into the matter. People will talk about Buhari because he's a Nigerian that served as, well, head of state in the first instance, and then later on as, a president, a democratically elected president. We're going to have to leave it here, but I want to thank you very much before I do so, Professor Bello Daudun. I hope I say that right, Bada, academic. Thank you very much, sir. I tried. Thank you very much, sir, for coming on our program this morning. Any last word? We have very short, in case there was anything you wanted to say as the last word on the man.
Well, I think Nigerians should really forgive Buhari for his shortcomings. May Allah forgive him. May his soul rest in peace.
Amen. That's a fine place to leave it. All right, then. Thank you very much. And so we'll leave it there. That's our program today. Do please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.